Good morning, and it's time for SMDH. Time here, an interview on KSMO Radio. I have with me this morning Tabitha Stanfast, ER Director. Tabitha, good morning.
Good morning.
See if I can get this to work where it needs to and
There
get
we
you.
go. We'll get it figured out.
It's going, I believe.
Awesome. Awesome.
Good to have you with us this morning. How's things at SMH, SMDH? We've had this
SMH,
discussion.
yes.
I can't believe I did that. We had the discussion before you went on air whether to go by SMDH or SMH, and we said, hey, we're both old school. We really are locked in pretty well to the SMDH, and what do? Second
Yeah.
word out of my mouth was SMH.
It's
Tabitha,
hard. It's hard to get out of that habit and just kind of be thinking about. I know we're supposed to say SMH, but my brain goes back to we're a district hospital, and so SMDH just sounds, I don't know, my mouth just does that a little bit easier, so it's okay. Either one works. Either one works.
bet.
People
Well,
are starting to get to know us by both. So
the doors
that's
opened,
good.
in 1970 or 69, something
Exactly.
like that, and clear up through the last, till about 2 months ago, we were always saying SMDH. All the signage on the out at the hospital itself and on the ambulances was all SMDH, and
Yep.
I noticed everything that everybody prints and sends in, if they got some, it's still SMDH.
Yeah.
So that's where we're headed.
It's kind of interesting, the history of SMDH versus SMH, and that they were intertwined for many years, and then in the last probably 15 to 20 years it really was solidified as SMDH, even though some of the signage, there is one sign out there that does not have district in it. It says Salem Memorial Hospital, and it's probably the original sign, I think.
I bet
but
so.
it's kind of interesting. But
Well,
yeah.
maybe somebody out there will research that for us and tell us if
Yeah,
we're right or wrong,
the
right?
history, yeah, some of the history is kind of interesting. So good to be here.
Well, Tabitha is the director of the ER, the emergency room at SMDH, and
Yes.
tell us what's new or what's going on at the emergency room.
Well, in the emergency room, there's not a lot new, which is a good thing.
That's true.
We are kept busy. We have two nurses that work. We have staff two nurses for 24/7. So you're always greeted by a nurse when you get back to the emergency department. We have a physician on staff 24/7. So we always have a physician available for any needs. Our staff, I don't remember the exact year, but we have over 200 years of experience on our nursing staff. So
Wow.
we have nurses that have been nurses for quite a few years, and we have some newer nurses too. So we have a wide variety of skill level, as far as like how long they've been a nurse.
Experience.
I don't like to say skill level. I guess that's probably the wrong word, because they're all highly skilled. Because
But their total amount of experience varies among
some
the
of
nursing
them,
staff.
yes, we have one nurse that she went through nursing school during the COVID years, and so her nursing school experience was way different
Oh,
than
yeah.
everyone else's before her. And school in general, nursing school in general, has really changed. So that's kind of interesting when they come in to work in the workforce, anywhere in the workforce, of their expectations and of what they've got to see in their clinical settings and stuff. So those nurses had a little bit of a tough time getting used to real patients, because they didn't see real patients for their training. So it was
Wow.
kind of interesting with that.
Sure.
But we have some really, really good nurses in our department, and our ambulance service is hospital based, and so they're right there with the ER nurses a lot of the times too. So we have that going on for us. The emergency department is a TCD, the hospital is a TCD certified stroke and STEMI center. We're level
Right.
4 stroke and STEMI center. So that means your ER nurses, your EMS, and even the floor nurses, they all have to go through specific training to meet the requirements to stay TCD certified. And that's on top of them working their shifts and stuff.
And that certification is real important, no matter where it is. But if we think about the fact here in Dent County, basically anybody within the county is within 15 to 20 miles of a STEMI center,
Yes.
which is, that's kind of unusual, but
Yeah.
big plus,
Yeah.
a big asset that we have with Salem Memorial District Hospital.
Yeah.
You were mentioning nurses with varying experience, and I just a side note went through my head, and I'll just go ahead and ask it point blank. Was
Sure.
Carol Lacey? Did Carol Lacey work at the nurse and ER for many years?
She did. She did. Yeah. When
Okay.
she was in the ER as the ER director, and then became the director of nurses before she retired. Yeah.
And then she's wound up. She's now on the Dent County Hospital, or not hospital,
The
Dent
health
County
center
Health
board.
Center Board.
Yes. Yes.
As one of our members of it, and we're
Yeah.
looking forward to Carol's service on that.
Yeah.
We have actually two nurses on there, another SMDH nurse in Lori Brown, and
Oh, okay.
so we've really got the medical side of the board really covered, I think.
Awesome.
And then we have also on the board, and this is not a commercial for the board, but since we started talking about Carol, we also have an accountant on there now, a retired accountant, and then somebody with the city and the fire department, and then I don't know why I'm on there. I guess just because I've been on there forever. Maybe that's it. But anyway,
go.
back to SMDH ER. That's what
Yes.
we're really here to talk about. This time of year, what is there a predominance of different of calls or services that come in, needs that come into the ER during the summer months?
You know, historically, the summer months were the trips and falls and broken bones and more of accidents, some traumas, car wrecks, river accidents of varying types, either on the water, off the water kind of thing. COVID really kind of changed some of that and changed some of the normal that we would see. So we're seeing sicker patients now. They're of all types, so respiratory, cardiac, maybe their blood pressure, their diabetes, things like that. And it's really been interesting the last year or so. The volume of patients has actually dropped, but the acuity of patients has gotten worse.
Wow.
And so we're not, like, industry-wide, that's something that's been happening across big and small hospitals. So we're not really certain if that is a direct link to COVID and the fact that maybe patients don't want to come when they're not too sick and they're wanting to wait until they really, really need it. You know, in our area, we have a lot of elderly patients, older
Absolutely.
patients that they don't come for health care until they're really sick, and sometimes they should have, if they would have come earlier, it wouldn't be such a big deal for them to get better.
Yeah.
And so they're actually that's been a newer that particular trend isn't new to our
Right.
area, because that's our the type of patients that live in our area, but that's actually being seen across healthcare now. People are waiting.
Obviously, I fit in that generation that you're referring to, and it is a mindset
It is.
generally among the baby boomers, I guess, that we're tough.
Yeah.
You know, our parents made it through World War II and Korea War, and
Yes.
then et cetera, and so we're tough. We can make it through. We'll get well, and then by the time we find out that, well, we're not getting well as like we should,
Right.
sometimes it's too late. But we better get in
Sometimes,
there, and then
yeah.
we just got to get into the emergency room, because that's another thing now that we have a problem in getting into regular medical care.
Right.
When you have an illness that keeps bugging you repeatedly.
Yeah.
I know we've had a situation in our family where we just can't get scheduled in. So
Yeah.
I
It
don't know
was-
how we're going to have to figure out how to.
Yeah, it was interesting. We have a morning leadership huddle in the library, and one of our leaders also works over at the fort, and he was mentioning that sleep studies for TRICARE, so for veterans, we're working on a contract, I guess, so that we can do those sleep studies at Salem. But I asked what's the normal lead time if they do an order for a sleep study, how long does it take them and to get that study done? And he said over there it's taking like 6 months for those patients to get care, and that's another trend. It's not a good trend, but it's another trend in healthcare in general, that to get specialty things done and to get in to see your healthcare provider is a 2 to 3 month wait sometimes. And
Is part of that? I know probably nobody really knows the cause of that, but is it partially due to the backlog that built up during COVID when we were not basically going and getting those
Preventative
services,
care services,
preventative care, and then it's kind of ballooned to where it's just made it more difficult to get in. There are more people waiting, more people needing, more people wanting to get in to see physicians.
I think that's part of it, and then I think the other part of that is the staffing in those facilities. That nursing staffing specifically is short
Yes.
across the nation. There's a lot of news stories just in the last week or so of staffing ratios of capping patients of St. Louis hospitals. Some of their I think it was in one hospital that they were protesting some of the safety aspects of the nursing ratios of patient to nurse ratio and things like that. And it's just there's just not a lot of staff, nurse staff, support staff, ancillary staff to really do some of the stuff. And so that just trickles down to increasing the wait time and things like that. So I think it was a combination of factors that has done that.
Are we at SMDH? Are we seeing considerable wait time on some of those services that we'd be requesting?
Like specifically to the sleep study, because that's one I can
Right.
tell you. He did say like our wait time is 2 months out. Like he can get people scheduled within 2 months versus 6 months.
Well,
So our wait times like for radiology services, MRIs, things like that. I think they're within 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the service that they need. So
Okay.
our wait times for our outpatient services is fantastic compared to some of the other larger facilities.
So there you have another advantage
Yes.
to our listeners, advantage to the local hospital, Salem Memorial District Hospital. We kind of, I guess, strayed away from ER a little bit, but that's all right. I mean, when it comes to ER, you've covered most of what's going on there, and some of these other health issues are just as important to get considered because of the called backlash or whatever I want to call it, the fact that people wind up in ER because they can't get into
Right.
those services that they're in need of.
Right,
So,
exactly.
interesting situation we've got in healthcare.
Yes.
Tabitha, I don't really have a bunch of questions. Now, I know if the normal person sitting in this chair was here and you've been here to talk to Stan a number of times, he'd have a whole boatload of questions for you. I don't.
Okay.
So anything if you've got anything else you want to share, that'd be great.
I do think that I would like to share about the Delta Project. So
Good.
that's not ER specific, but I've been a part of the Delta Project since we got that grant back in 2021, 2022.
Now, that's the Delta Regional Authority
That's
that basically is in the southeast part of the United States.
We're kind of the
We are.
northwestern edge of the Delta
I
region.
think Dent and Crawford County are the only MRPC counties
I think so.
and it might be Dent and Washington. Don't hold me to that for sure, but are the only counties in MRPC that are part
Yes.
of that
Yep.
Delta
Yep.
program.
So
Go
Iron
ahead.
County is part, so
Yes.
everything southeast. But so we've had it's the DRCHSD, so the Delta Regional Community Health is what this particular grant is. It's through the Delta Region Authority. We're about halfway through the 3-year grant. So we've done a few assessments. So the center comes in and it's been virtual because everything's been virtual lately, but they have come in over the last couple of years and have done a couple of assessments. They did a financial and an operational assessment, and from there we picked up some work product that we needed to work on, and so we meet with them on a quarterly basis to do updates based on the things that the hospital wanted to work on. And then we also did that on quality improvements. But we're also, the hospital has really benefited from this in that we've also done a telehealth assessment. And telehealth is kind of, it's kind of interesting because we have patients or people that live in our area that have no internet.
Right.
or if they have internet, they have to go to the top of the hill to get internet. And so, and then we have people that have high-speed internet that has, they just do everything over internet. And so we have a interesting divide in internet capabilities, and that means that we have an interesting divide in telehealth capabilities and the services we can provide and things like that. But they're doing a telehealth assessment, and part of that telehealth assessment was they actually came in and did a wireless infrastructure assessment at the hospital, and part of that grant is actually funding an upgrade to those wireless network
good.
switches, I think is what it's called. Jeremy would know
Yes.
all these words, and I don't. I came to him before I came over here and said, okay, what's the words that I know that we were doing, but I know that there's some words that I'm not exactly certain of. But that that wireless infrastructure assessment, we were able to fund the wireless upgrade. So there's more wireless points, or will be more wireless points within the hospital. And then also we were able to fund HR software. So our employee onboarding process will be able to be improved, because we're able, that program actually funds that software.
Oh, awesome.
And we were able to fund some event reporting software, so for a risk manager, and we were able to fund, it's called Lippincotts, but it's a nursing skills and competency software. That's kind of where we're headed to go with that. But that software will improve our nursing skills, and being able to improve like the competencies that they need to go through and things like that, which just improves the care that we're able to deliver.
Sure.
So it's really exciting to be able to say that some of that stuff is coming through that Delta project. And then the other thing that Jason and I just sat through the kickoff call last Monday on was a revenue cycle assessment and a physician practice management assessment. And so we're in the gather data phase of that to be able to work with the center and with Forbes on our revenue cycle management and on our physician practice. So that's something that we probably don't hear a whole lot about,
Right.
the Delta project. It's something that the hospital, like I said, we're halfway through our 3-year project with that. So it's stuff that we're doing on internally at the hospital, but it's definitely going to be a positive impact for the healthcare that we'll be able to deliver. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and I was just going to restate that again, so you're about halfway through. Well, it sounds like you've really accomplished a lot at SMDH, considering
have.
you're halfway through this
Yeah.
grant.
Yeah.
That's just really cool, excellent stuff. That
Yeah.
sounds great.
Yeah, so I did want to make sure I mentioned that,
Sure,
because that's something
it's
that I think
important.
we haven't really talked about
No,
recently. So
I don't.
just to make sure we had an update.
Okay, great.
It's still going.
Well, got another basically year and a half of
Yes.
that 3-year
Yep.
grant to
Yep.
work our way through.
And then speaking of grants, and this is not a grant, but I don't know what the state is calling it, but Salem Hospital was recently notified that we were one of the pilot hospitals for the Torch program, and that's kind of a grant, but I don't think they're calling it a grant. But so that will start at the beginning of the year, I believe. I think they've had one kickoff call on that. So that's some extra help in maybe processes and things like that, and we're still hoping to, that's still something that's coming down the pike. But
And it's its initial stages since it starts the first year, so you're still learning a lot about what's going to be
still
involved
not exactly sure
in
what
the
we're going to
Torch
be doing
program.
with that. Yeah,
I
but
got
that's
Okay.
pretty exciting. I think we're one of 6 hospitals that are the initial program. This is the first year they've done that. So, and I
Okay.
believe that's a 3-year project as well.
Well, that'll give Stan and future folks in to do interviews on behalf of SMDH more to talk about
Exactly.
as that program moves forward, and keep us up to date on the Delta project as well.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So yeah, thank you though.
it's quite all right. It's good
Yeah.
stuff. For us really not having much to start with, you have come up with a lot of information for us today. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's enough.
Okay.
I don't want to bore anybody.
Well, no, we don't. We want to get to the meat of it, which we did. I really want to sincerely thank Tabitha for being in today. Tabitha Stanfast, the director of the ER at SMDH. It's been great to have you here, and come back just any time that you can find time.
Okay. I
Take
will.
care.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to return you to our regular programming. Stay tuned to KS.